So it's not for kids.
Someone in our Discord brought up the idea that we only reference memes from 5 years ago.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
And just earlier today, I referenced over 9,000, which is much older than 5 years ago.
Top memes 2021.
God, he's Googling it. You're doing like my bit right now. Like you're going to find a BuzzFeed article. And be like, this is what was going on.
This BuzzFeed article says that the best memes included Grumpy Cat. Boston University, 21 memes that got us through 2021.
God.
I'm sure this is going to be a real goal of mine.
The real goal that I had with bringing this up was that actually what we should do to be truly shelf stable is every episode that we record today, we don't release for 5 years. So we talk about the memes going on right now, and then it's time capsuled for 5 years later.
We do like a Nico Avocado where we just like record 5 years of content. Actually, that'd be kind of dope if we like recorded an episode that we didn't release until 5 years from now.
Wouldn't that be kind of something?
That is actually cooking.
Okay. Bonus episode that you won't hear about for 5 years. And you know what's nuts? Actually, that reminds me that there's literally a movie that some people made.
Yeah, Boyhood.
I'm going to tell you this, and it will sound like it's a Richard Linklater project. I don't think it is, but it was like they made a movie and it won't come out for like 100 years. I think by now it's like 90 something or 80 something.
Yeah, it'll probably suck.
It probably sucks ass, but it was like made in tandem with some like whiskey.
That's dumb.
So that's like the concept.
It's gonna huff balls like so hard. People are gonna be like, yeah, like this was not worth the wait. I'm sorry.
But it's directed by Robert Rodriguez, so I bet you feel bad now. The guy who made fucking Spy Kids, right? The movie is called 100 Years. It will come out in 2115.
Oh, I see.
It was written by and starring John Malkovich, directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'm glad we'll be dead by then. I don't want to see that.
It's literally called The Movie You'll Never See. So,
Bernie's mittens. Bernie sitting in a chair with his mittens and the COVID mask on. That was 2021 meme.
What a meme. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen? Remember when Bernie Sanders looked mildly gruff and cold in the weather, and everyone was like, this is so epic. He's really showing it to Drumpf in this photo. I saw so many bumper stickers of that. Imagine like, what's like the most like blue checkmark car you can imagine with the bumper stickers? They have the Bernie and mittens in a chair in their window, and then they have like Biden Harris 2024. What else fits this car that I'm describing?
Maybe like a really worn out Coexist.
Oh, I like that a lot. I really do.
I think anybody that's writing an article about the best memes of the year is probably not going to actually have the best memes, right? It's like a Schrodinger's cat kind of situation. The
memes that I'm like trying and failing to recall from the time, like the memes were so ephemeral then, and I mean they still are. Like memes are shit like 6, 7. Like I feel like the brain rot stuff has more tangible nature to it than whatever we were smoking in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, I think you're right. Do you want to start the show?
This is the banter segment.
Are you going to hit me with an NL right now? This is the show. You're like, talk about games. What you just want is like a nice interaction between two people.
We don't want to hear about your guys' takes on cultural artifacts.
You're waiting for the meat and potatoes. This is the meat and potatoes.
That sounds like something he would say if he were on our show.
Did you watch the trauma while he was playing Mahjong that he like shared with people?
You bringing up like some random Northern Lion segment that no one has seen and not tying it back to board games, is that better or worse than like my cereals thing from last week?
Well, we're in the banter here, you know. It's permissible.
Oh, anything goes in the banter segment? Oh, okay.
Also, as a general rule of thumb, like anything I say is like big brain, 200 IQ. Anything you say is dog shit. Like that's the way I see the world, right?
True. It's really funny because I feel like the reason our dynamic works as well as it does is that we both understand like our role in like the cosmos, kayfabe, essentially. Well, because you know how like in cartoons, there's always like minions or like a pair of cartoon people, and like one of them is like the tall guy and one of them's like the short crazy guy.
Yeah,
it's like in Cyber Chase you had the two robots, and in Phineas and Ferb and Regular Show it's like you're the tall guy, like both in real life like and like on the show, like you're like the relatively normal person most of the time, and then I'm like the short raccoon.
You know what it is? Like you're Gintama and I'm like the Shinpachi. Like you're the funny guy and I'm the straight man, you know? It's like
honestly, that's the most glazed that I've ever felt in my life, that you're comparing me to Gintoki from Gintama.
You're just going to say some dumb shit and everyone's going to laugh, and then I have to be like, what are we doing here? What I don't realize is I always feel like I have like the superior moral ground or whatever, or like intellectual ground, when really I'm just another idiot in this anime.
I feel like though you're making us out to be like the Jim and Pam of Gintama, when like actually we're like the Yakuza goons, where like the one guy is like serious and the other dude always pulls out a missile launcher. Like I'm like the missile launcher character.
You're the missile launcher. I'm the guy who puts mayonnaise on everything.
Yeah.
None of this is making it into the episode, by the way.
This is really hitting for like exactly 2 people. I don't know.
Welcome to Shelf Stable. Okay. Oh, please. Welcome to Shelf Stable, a podcast celebrating board games that have stood the test of time. I'm your host, Kenny Katayama.
And I'm the other host, Tom Bowers. Today, the featured topic is characteristics of games, chapters 3 through 5. 3-5. But before we talk about characteristics of games, the book written by Richard Garfield, Skaff, Elias, and K. Robert Gutschera, we're just going to talk about some of the stuff we've been playing recently, I think. Anything interesting come up for you?
We're going on a safari. I got my binoculars. Journey with me, Tom, to Botswana, aka Wildlife Safari, from 1994. We were just babies when this game came out. This is none other than the good Dr. Reiner Knizia, the latest edition from 25th Century Games. This game has been reprinted a number of times. It's also like Irish Wolf, Thor. There's a version called Loco. There's a version called Quandary. So if you're listening, you might have played this game and just not realized. In Knizia fashion, it is a game that has very few rules, but then a lot of thinkiness that comes out of it. You got 5 animals. They have the cards numbered, I believe, 0 through 5. And then there's like a number of those animals out on the table. My favorite edition of this has actual like plastic toy animals, like the ones that, you know, little kids get at that one like toy store that doesn't have like IP based products. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But anyway,
what about animal crackers? What if it came with like edible pieces like that?
That would be pretty good. I'm always looking for more games I can eat. So
you are literally always talking about eating game pieces.
It's true.
It's like not even a joke.
Yeah, it's funny that you mention the eating game pieces thing, because there's a new podcast called But Why Vikings with Ava Foxford and Tim Clare and Ian McAllister. There's some pretty awesome people in the board game scene. They were doing like an advice cast where you send in questions. And I sent in a question that was like, what is the board game piece that would give the most pleasure while causing the least damage if you swallowed it? And they like genuinely went through and like answered it. Of course, first qualifying, like, don't ever do this. This is a bit like, we do not endorse the eating of pieces.
They're just trying their best not to create Tide Pods too.
Yeah, maybe I have like an oral fixation with board games that I need to dig deep and try to understand what that means.
That should be a bonus episode, is like which board games would make the best cereal.
Yeah, we do like a tier list. So Botswana is you play a card and then you take an animal. You don't necessarily have to take the animal of the card you played. And what you're functionally doing is creating a stock market of these animals. Again, the numbered cards are 0 through 5. So whatever card is on the top of the pile for that specific animal is how much that animal scores at the end of the round. And each time you take one of those animals, you're investing a little bit more into that animal. That's the core of the game. Play a card, take an animal. The round ends when all the cards of a certain animal have been played. And then you just score each animal for whatever card is on top for each animal. And so you can do these funny things where you know you have the 0 in your hand. And so you can just hold on to it, planning to tank it as the very last move of the game while everybody else is investing in that stuff. There's all these like funny little interactions that can happen. It really becomes a game about reading the opponents. The nice thing with this game is it is, even for Knizia, so straightforward that me just explaining the rules now should be getting people thinking about how this works. Kind of crazy how much game comes out of this like core concept.
Yeah, and I'm noticing too that it's so foundationally abstract that of course it's been like adapted into a million things. I mean, it's wild that Eagle Griffin, or I guess it would have just been Griffin Games, even made the version that has the fucking toy animals, because like it's so overproduced. I mean, it almost is like they predicted Kickstarter with this one.
Yeah, I love that Griffin Games version, though.
With the aminals. It makes me think of a number of other games at the same time. Makes me think of Vegetable Stocks or whatever that game's called.
Yes, it is very similar to Vegetable Stock.
And Startups.
Yeah, there's definitely the space of like filler game that creates an investor mentality. I think what Botswana does a little bit better than both of those games is it's just like immediately accessible. I'm not saying Startups and Vegetable Stock are like hard to learn, but you know, there is a little bit to figure out there. It's not a game that you're going to show to people who haven't played a lot of board games. Botswana, on the other hand, like you can just hit the ground running.
You don't even need to buy it. You could just find 5 cards that go 0 through 5. I mean,
yeah, it's a pretty easy game to make a print and play kind of homebrew copy of, and you can theme it around whatever you want. If you prefer to make it Gundam themed, you know, you can.
Yes, this would be the perfect Gundam adaptation game somehow.
I just have to build 25 Gundam model kits for people to be able to take.
People would probably actually lose their shit if you had like really tiny, super simple assembly Gundams in one box. Like,
that'd be cool.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That was a Botswana or Wildlife Safari from 1994.
All right, well, jumping way up right into the threshold of shelf stability, or at least it used to be, to 2020, the year that will go down in infamy, I'm sure. We're talking about Cross Clues. This is designed by Gregory, Grard, and published by Blue Orange Games. Cross Clues. It's code names, but that's reductive. I'm not sure if I played like the official rules of this exactly, but this is a game where you create a grid of the numbers 1 through 5 and the letters A through E. And then there's a deck of cards that everyone is pulling from that will give you the crosshairs of something in that grid. The trick is that the numbered cards will each have a word associated with it. The lettered cards will each have a word associated with it. And you need the rest of your group to figure out where your card is supposed to fit in that grid. And this is pretty easy potentially when you have something like honey and yellow in C3. But if D4 gives you airport and dinosaur, I mean, what would you give as a clue for airport and dinosaur, Kenny?
Pterodactyl?
Sure. And like that might work, you know, but maybe there's another word in there like flying, you know, and you got to be a little more careful.
Oh, you didn't tell me flying was in there.
Yeah, you fucked up. Or you might be like me and think that your team is going to understand the word Kennedy because John F. Kennedy Airport And also RFK Jr. is a dinosaur. Anyway, it didn't work. Point is that this is the type of
stretch.
Game. I know. Well, you should have seen the board, okay? All right. It was things were happening. It's one of those games that does code names better, almost, in my opinion. It's code names with like more meme potential in some ways, and you can play it at a faster pace. And everyone gets like their turn to be the clue master. I'm surprised how much I liked this for how little I had heard of it before playing it. This was really fun. I like this one a lot. And it's so reproducible, even in comparison to Codenames. Like I wouldn't even necessarily need my own copy of this to be able to play it. You could do almost the same thing if you just set out like the suits of a deck. So it's like diamond, spade, whatever, on one part of the grid, and then the other part was like 1 through 5, and you just took those cards out, right? Like I can already imagine ways of playing this. But that said, I'm still playing cross clues. So shout out Gregory Grard. I'm going to be keeping my eyes on you, see what else you come up with, because this one's a good one.
Honestly, I've only heard the name, and I know nothing of it. So thanks for putting on my radar. I am interested in trying this out. I do like Codenames quite a bit. I think it's a really good party game. And so if you're telling me it's even better than Codenames, my interest is piqued.
My rationale there is mostly just that it lets everyone get in on the action of being the Codemaster, because I think that is the most interesting or fun place for Codenames. But I might be biased, and I can recognize that other people might disagree with me and they'd rather be the person trying to guess the grid. But you literally get to do both by playing cross clues. So assuming that you're the kind of person who's interested in both roles in Codenames, cross clues allows the entire group to participate in both roles. And I think it really excels at it in my admittedly limited experience. But I'm eager to try this one out again and use it more often as potential filler. Nice.
That was cross clues. Tom, we're going to waltz on over to the trick-taking corner over here. We're going to talk about The Bottle Imp. This is originally from 1995. It is a trick-taking game where you are trying to curse each other by forcing the Bottle Imp upon a player. The Bottle Imp kills you. You score nothing. That's worse than scoring nothing. You score negative points for whatever cards people burned at the beginning of the round. And the way you get the Bottle Imp is by playing Trump. Trump starts at the middle of the deck. It's like card number 18, I believe. And then anytime you play a card lower than it, you trump anything that's out there. But then you take the Bottle Imp, and the card that you trumped with becomes the new number. If it starts at 18, someone else plays a 10, and then you respond by playing like a 14, for example, then you have the highest number that's still under Trump. You win that particular trick, which is good. You want to win tricks, but then you also have the Bottle Imp. So you have to find a way to hot potato it off to someone else. The goal is to leverage Trump while not being the last one to do so, to basically pawn it off onto someone else, either by their own demise or intentionally by gaming them. And it's very hard to suss out, very hard to do. This game is cursed, like genuinely. When you play this, you're just both physically and figuratively, you're like just going to be screwed over by this game. It's like insane. This hurt my head. It was generally like unpleasant. And you might be thinking like unpleasant in a good way. I don't know. I honestly, the jury's out.
In a good way.
No, you know how like sometimes it's like, oh, Seas of Strife, I like lost so many times. Oh, it's so good. Or
like eating Captain Crunch. Like it cuts my cheeks and gums, but it's really good.
The Bottle Imp, one of my resolutions is to not judge things too quickly. So I think I have to play it again to really get a judgment. Right now, I'm on the fence. To me, yes, it was unpleasant, but I could see it going one of two ways. I could see it going but the more I play it, what I respect about it becomes fun. There's definitely respect there. I just don't know if it's respect that pushes it into, I want to play this more territory, or just like, this is too much territory. Like I could see it go either the route of like Ghosts of Christmas, which is just way too much, or something like Seas of Strife, which is like yum, 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 you know? So
yeah, interesting.
it really does feel cursed. I have to give it that. It's not even like the other players are trying to screw you over. It's like the game itself is screwing you over. It's just like, there's just like a whole lot of unpleasantness that comes out of every move that's made in a way that's like kind of fascinating. We played the latest edition of this. I think the 1995 version has like a breakdown of the suits and the numbers in each suit, which is really nice. It's very clear. It's just like a table. It's a spreadsheet. And then every other edition they've done this like stupid spiraling snake to show the breakdown of the values. There must be something I'm missing about why it's a snake. And then the latest version put that snake, but like made it take up only a third of the card that it's on. So it's like unreadable. The latest edition is really pretty. It's like super stylistic and stuff, but that card that shows you the breakdown of the suits and the numbers is like illegible, to a point where like one of the players was like, why is there a 25 in between the 2 and the 3? And then we were like squinting at it and we were like, oh, it's a 2.5. There's a 2.5 card that they added for like a larger player count. If people are squinting to try to understand your card, that probably means the text is too small. And the thing that drives me nuts is like, there is so much white space. There's so much open area on that freaking card. They just decided to make this like stupid snaking thing that looks like it's out of like a freaking Parcheesi board or something. I don't know. Chutes and ladders, but like fit onto one little card. I don't understand.
Definitely a weird visual design choice.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like some really like obvious heuristic that you just didn't recognize. Like
there's gotta be something
like that, so that like the numbers that are like closest to each other have some sort of relationship.
Maybe the ones that are at the top of the snake are worth more points than the ones at the bottom. But when we were trying to figure out some kind of correlation, we just couldn't find one. So
that's interesting though.
Bottle Imp, definitely like a fascinating artifact at the least.
I jumped us forward 2020. You're taking us to the 90s. Fuck that. We're going 18xx, baby. We're playing turn of the century type games over here. I played Hearts, the classic trick-taking game. This is designed by someone in history and is now part of the public domain. You literally just play it with a deck of cards. It's a trick-taking game where you're trying not to win a particular suit. You're trying not to get those nasty, nasty hearts or the Queen of Spades for some reason. I just love that, right? Like the little... Oh, yeah, and also this one. Like, okay.
There's got to be a history. Why Queen of Spades?
I think the only thing that's like particularly notable about this trick-taking game is that I had not played it up until this point. And sometimes you just got to kind of go back to the OG. And I found this one pretty fun. I actually saw a line where it literally made sense to shoot the moon. I just had tons of high cards in my hand. I was like, I'm going to get screwed anyway. It's time to go for it. And I could have done it, except I fucked up like almost immediately with the spades. And the Queen of Spades ended up going to someone else. And I was like, no. So if that hadn't happened, it would have been epic. But I found this one, I don't want to say enjoyable per se, because I say that a lot. But also, I don't know that I actually enjoyed this one as much as other trick-taking games. Like, this doesn't clear Seas of Strife, even though it's OG. I don't even think it clears Scout, which is famously not a trick-taking game. Or Cat in the Box, for that matter. I don't even know where I'm placing this. I'm bringing this up, and I'm just like, yeah, I played Hearts, and like, you know what? The technology's evolved. I think that's my point. You'll often just hit a point where you're like 5 or 6 cards in, and it's like, oh, okay, and all the rest of the cards go to you. I
think that's because you're bad.
Well, not to me specifically, but like it kept happening. It kept happening that like one player just clearly had like the rest of the tricks were going to be dominated by what they were leading on.
I don't know. So the most critical thing, in my opinion, in Hearts is the passing of the cards.
Well, yeah.
And then the hand kind of plays itself.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is like it becomes so automated towards the end of the hand. It veers into almost becoming uninteresting or rote. There's the card passing, phase, and then there's just the playing the tricks phase, and it can become almost too automatic is basically what I'm getting at, right?
It's hard for me to assess this game because this was my first trick taker. I had the full gamut of like being really frustrated by this and not understanding it and just getting pummeled to like having the haze part and then just being obsessed and really enjoying playing this. So I don't know where I land on Hearts. I still really enjoy it, but is that nostalgia or is that because it still stands amongst the greats?
Yeah, I suppose I could take a page out of your book and like not, try and hate things on first tries. In general, I guess, like if someone sat down, it's like all we got between us is a deck of cards. I'm going to be like, all right, we're doing Hearts, like if there's about 4 of us in a deck of cards, like I'm open to that just about every time.
Yeah.
I'll say that it's one of the better games you can play with a deck of cards that doesn't require anything else.
Yeah, I do think I'd rather Cat in the Box or Seas of Strife.
Yeah, for it just being ready to go out of a bicycle deck, like it's impressive, I guess, just how much game there is to be had.
So I'm on 247spades.com, 247spades.com, okay. And they say the meaning behind the Queen of Spades. The meaning is rich and varied. In tarot, the Queen of Spades is often interpreted as an intellectual figure and someone of strategy and independence. Can also be viewed as a figure of misfortune, particularly in European card games, as she's linked to bad luck. That's Hearts.
That's Hearts, baby.
100 games to play before you die.
Okay, Kenny, it's time to talk about the 100 games that you're required to play before you turn 100 years old and die. I think David Attenborough, good luck. You got a few months left. Game number 61 on the list that you ought to try out is Wabash Cannonball, also known as Chicago Express, from 2007, designed by John Bohrer. And published by Winsome Games.
Yeah, I appreciate the European flair there, but they're American.
John Bohrer. Why is this on the list?
Yeah, we haven't talked about train games yet on this podcast. So I think this is a good opportunity. I think train games are more than just the trains, really. It's really the idea of like creating networks and investing in them and then seeing them pay off. And what better way to start than with cube rails? The OG cube rails, the one that spawned a huge amount of different versions, is Wabash Cannonball, also known as Chicago Express. This is a game that kind of distills 18xx and even almost like the Acquire formula to like a very straightforward, you can do 2 kinds of things. You can invest in stock in the different train companies, or you can put trains out on the board. And the trains are just these little cubes, hence the cube rails concept. The more the cubes connect to cities, the more valuable the stock goes. And it just becomes a game of like, do I invest now? Oftentimes there's an auction. In this one, there's an auction. It's amazing how streamlined the rules are for this, but then there's like so much game that comes out of it. And I can't think of a better way to get people going. Like, it's just kind of like, boom, you're in it. And then you're either instantly like, this is not my thing, or you are like, more. And that's how you get into 18xx. Tom and I were like revisiting a year ago, and it's like, I was like, I don't know about these 18xx games, but I really like the cube rail stuff that we did this year. So maybe one day, and then the rest is history. This is a perfect example, right? You're going to play this, and then that's going to lead you down that path. I do think Irish Gauge is like a perfect alternative to this. They're both kind of on par in terms of being a great gateway and getting people hyped on these kind of games if they're what people are into.
It's interesting because you brought up Shikoku 1889 a lot, right?
Yeah.
Are they nearly equivalent?
I don't think so. Despite me really liking 1889 and 1830 as well, they are great recommendations if you get into cube rails and you really like it. But I do not think that I would replace or add the 18xx games on this list. I think you start with a cube rails game and then you go down the rabbit hole.
Counterpoint, though, you do have Warhammer on this list, right? I could argue that throwing someone at Warhammer when you could have picked something like miniatures on a hex-based map be moving around.
Are you talking about Heroescape?
Heroescape.
There's actually a really good reason for that. It's because of the culture around 40K, the painting of the minis, the building of your army, the reading up on the books. And it's really not about having a mini skirmisher. Because, I mean, we also have like Memoir on the list, you know. Wabash gives you the same experience as 18xx, but as a stepping stone, whereas Warhammer gives you a different experience from Heroescape, for example. I'm curious what other people think about this. I mean, I'm more trying to rationalize my approach versus saying I'm right. That was Wabash Cannonball.
All right, enough yapping, enough stalling, enough bullshitting, enough wasting everybody's time. It's time to quit talking about board games. It's time to start talking about books about board games. It's time to get into the main topic of this week's episode, the real meat and potatoes, the part of the show that people come back week after week to listen to, and that's Characteristics of Games, chapters 3 through 5. The textbook, the definitive book. There will be no other book that ever talks about board games again, probably.
Never.
Written by George Skaff, Elias, Richard Garfield, and K. Robert Gutschera. It's a book about games, and I read 90% of what I was supposed to read. You can't be too mad at me.
No, I think
there were
that's
like
good.
90 pages to get through all of a sudden.
I think that's a good amount.
But you read it all.
I read it all, but I'm a good boy. But I mean, to be honest, I didn't finish chapter 2 last time, and we had to reschedule the recording so I could finish it. So I don't want to like paint a picture of you being the bad boy and me always being the good one. So
yeah. Plus, you're still on parental leave, right? So you're literally not doing anything.
Well, there's some truth. I am anchored to a baby, you know, and sometimes you just kind of have to like rock them while reading a book about games. So there is some truth there.
You read it out loud to the baby to help her fall asleep.
Yeah,
like
she just knocks out. Chapter 3. This one it starts talking about rules.
It's called Infrastructure.
Yeah. This one covers a lot of stuff.
I think it's like the most broad and almost the most vague chapter of them all.
Yeah, I think they were like, this is a lot of stuff that we should say pretty early on, but we can't call this chapter intro and we can't call it miscellaneous, so we're just going to use the word infrastructure.
Basically like the skeletons of games, right?
I don't know. I would argue it's miscellaneous early stuff.
Well, it's like rules, standards, outcomes, end conditions.
Yeah.
Positional asymmetry and sensory feedback. It's literally talking about like, all right, we're gaming now. We're moving pieces around. Where does the game begin and end? What are the parameters of a game? And not just what are the parameters, because we covered that in the first 2 chapters, but it's really like, how do we turn the ephemeral concept of your game into tangible objects that move through space and time?
Were there things that like stood out to you in this chapter?
This will almost sound dumb, but it's like clarifying end conditions as a separate thing from wins the game. I don't know why I'd never really thought about exactly the idea of the game. What am I trying to say?
Yeah, I think the way they word it is sometimes we think of rules around winning as systemic, but they're actually agential. Just to say that like the concept of winning is separate from what the rules state as far as the win condition. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they draw this distinction between the end condition and, of course, like the win condition. And it's like one of those things where I'd always intuited some of the stuff that they talk about, but I'd never quite put together some of these ideas. Another thing that they get at is like dual victory tracks, like where you can be like, you know, one of the richest players in a game, but if you aren't converting that wealth into points, it's kind of useless.
Yeah, I like that they highlight that's like a way to mitigate like snowballing or having like a runaway winner.
Yeah, it made me think of Terraforming Mars quite a bit in this section, because like Terraforming Mars also has a game end condition that is related to game actions, but is not like any one player crossing a finish line per se, which I think is one of the more interesting aspects of that game's design in general. And it even has the same thing too, where like you can generate like massive economy. In theory, you should be able to translate that into more and more points as time goes on. But if you don't, or you can't, like you can feel good for basically having become super rich on Mars, but you didn't actually win, quote unquote, the game.
Yeah, it's the separation of the means to succeeding from the actual success.
And that was the other funny thing too about the agential nature of it, where it's like a lot of games will just put players in relative positions to each other, and a lot of the time they are likely not all that interested in who exactly came out on top, but might be more interested in how they did compared to themselves in the past. And that comes up even more often in sports, right? Like if you run a marathon, you don't care if you didn't come first in the marathon, but you're trying to run faster than your previous self most of the time, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Battle Royales weren't a thing back then, but I assume that if they did a new edition, they'd probably talk a little bit about Battle Royale video games. You're probably thinking about winning in a very different way in a Battle Royale, because otherwise you're just going to be losing a lot.
Mm-hmm. I do love that when they talked about the different physical aspects of games, the, what's the term here? The sensory experience that they did.
Oh, yeah.
They went all the way and included one paragraph on taste, and I'm going to read it right now because it's very up your alley.
I also highlighted this.
It says, taste is not commonly a factor in games, except perhaps in sports if things go drastically wrong. Some specific exceptions might include Fear Factor style games, chocolate Russian roulette, and drinking games. I gotta play more chocolate Russian roulette.
I love, is that a thing? So I understand what that is from them saying it, but like, is it specifically chocolate? I know people do that with like Dave's Hot Chicken, but like...
Oh, I see. I was almost thinking like somehow you're playing like Russian roulette where you're just picking someone at random and they're the only person that gets to eat a piece of chocolate.
No, that's a very wholesome version. No, they put moldy cheese in one of the chocolates. And
moldy cheese?
Then they put, Da Bomb in the second one. And then they put just regular chocolate in the third one.
Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. I think I've even seen that in like boxes where you can get like one that's just jalapeno chocolate.
It's like the Bean Boozled thing,
Oh God, yeah, those things. Yeah. I hated those things.
It's funny because they go into like way more detail right before that about the smell in games, and they're like, oh yeah, smell is like, especially in sports, it's like really important. And then they go to the taste in games and they're like, there's not really taste in games.
They're like, this is one of the senses.
They're just like, you just did 2 paragraphs about smelling in games and you're going to say there's no taste in games? Either commit to both or like, I don't know. That was kind of funny to me. It really does feel like they finished the smell part and they're like, we didn't talk about taste.
Smell in a game is rarely deliberately designed. It's true, but it's kind of funny to me because they don't say anything about like the smell of like the fresh cardboard sensations.
No, they do. They talk about opening a booster pack. They do talk about that.
Oh, yeah. They
allude to it a little bit, but they didn't talk about, like a new cardboard smell, which I do think it's an experience. It's not necessarily part of the game, though. They had this analogy of like rules are like words in a story. Little Red Riding Hood can still be Little Red Riding Hood even if you change the words. The rules themselves are not the game. It is the structure by which you communicate the intent of the game. And the other example they give is like people will attune or tweak games over time to maintain or try to preserve the experience that they intended when people start to like break the game. Good example of this is like when Tapestry was completely broken by the factions, they released updated ones. Or, this is very common in Magic, banning cards or changing certain rules about how the game's played because somebody exploited something. Yeah,
like releasing companions only to then add an entire mechanic that wasn't printed on the cards in order to make them reasonable.
Yeah.
One thing about that section that I found really interesting, to say the least, was the section on innovation.
By Carl Chudik?
Yeah. Just in general, that like standards exist for a reason. And one of those reasons essentially is cognitive ease.
Yes, that was really good.
It's not like you can't innovate and still respect the old ways. And it did almost seem like they were coming for Carl Chudik a little bit.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, as crazy as Chudik is, I think that for the most part, he still maintains the things that people are familiar with. maybe just less so than other designers do. And so it stands out like a sore thumb. You know, he's not like, these aren't cards.
Yeah.
I think this is something that you see more with like amateur game designers, where they're like, oh, I'm not going to call this the discard pile. I'm going to call this the rest zone and things like that.
Yeah.
Like, standards exist for a reason. Save the innovation for where it pulls its weight.
Just because your game is a bunch of standards all tied together in a box and it doesn't feel quote unquote innovative or groundbreaking or completely cutting edge, sharp and crazy, that's literally like the opposite of a bad thing. Like, if anything, your game is probably better the less you try explicitly to like innovate by violating standards. Like, it's almost like painful to go too far in that direction.
I do think there's like an implicit bias in gamers and in designers of like, if I am not innovating upon a core conceit of my game, then it is not innovative. But I think you can still have a really creative and inventive game that has that creativity imbued in the outside of the game, whether that be like the nice little touches or some mechanism that isn't the core mechanism, or even just like thematics or execution. That is still innovative.
Yeah, I mean, just look at like Reiner Knizia's entire photography.
Exactly. Still building upon things.
His innovations are subtle.
I thought it was interesting that they said rules are generally perceived as a bad thing in the sense that one would like to achieve gameplay with the fewest rules possible rather than more.
Yes.
That was interesting because I'm like, yeah, I don't think the rules themselves are bad, but the rules are there to serve as clarity of the intent. It's not like more is better. You need the minimum amount so that you can get going and not make mistakes.
My interpretation of that section was like specifically about rule books. You create a board game, you're trying to get people to play it. I think one publisher who I don't really like, but I kind of respect for this in a way, is the people who made like Poetry for Neanderthals and Throw Burrito and all that shit. Their rule book literally has a QR code, says, go watch this YouTube video to learn how to play. And then they're like, okay, you didn't want to watch the YouTube video and pull out your phone. We get it. Just read this quick how to play section. And if you really get stuck on something, you can read the full explanation like behind this. They're almost too aggressive about keeping people from like reading the full rules, as it were. But the general idea, I think, is you should be able to try and get people into your game with as little overhead as possible. The majority of people are like, I just finished my 12th game of Monopoly with Mima. What do you got for me? And like, you are not going to get them into your game.
I think yes, for a mass market audience. I don't know.
No, even for me, that's what I'm saying.
I don't agree.
Just
there.
give me the easy ball teach, like just the small ball.
I don't agree. I've definitely been in situations like you where I just want to get started or want to give people things to not overwhelm them. I've received frustration from folks because they want to be understanding and clarifying more of the game because there's a lack of control. There's a fear of underperforming or under-experiencing the game if you don't have enough information. And I think that's as valid as a desire to get going. Like, I don't think one trumps the other. I agree with you on a mass market level, but I don't agree with you when it comes to hobbyist games. I think you got to give people different avenues. And I think the best rule book or the best teach is going to be the one that provides options to the particular person that's reading them.
We're kind of getting lost in a bit of the teach here, but I'd say even the game itself in general benefits from culling its rules to the essentials.
I agree on that. Yeah.
As soon as you add in, rules and exceptions for like edge cases, you find yourself trying to patch things essentially in a board game. It's like, that's not where you want to be.
That can cause more confusion or even abuse of the rules. So I agree.
Exactly. It's like if that one card that you added to your deck, your card game deck is like fucking things up by constantly creating these scenarios that are like very complex and hard to explain. You probably just got to cut that card.
That's different from what we were saying, though. Like that's
so.
Making a game that's streamlined versus teaching a game that's already been streamlined to its max.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I'm saying both things Yeah, it is a separate thing. What characteristics of games is really talking about is streamlining the rules of the game itself is generally better. Like by like avoiding
I agree with
an
that.
abundance of rules and specifics.
Yeah.
And I was somewhat accidentally carrying that over into teaching people games as well, which is like, we're not here for the rules. We're here to play. But you're disagreeing with that. And I'm like, I think someone who's afraid that they aren't going to get a full experience on a first pass might be suffering from hypervigilance.
No, I don't know. I don't agree with you on that. I think people interact with games in different ways. And I think you're kind of projecting your ideal state and thinking that everybody wants that.
It's true. I don't know. I understand not omitting things that could come up frequently.
An argument could be made that if it's only going to take us 5 more minutes to know all the rules, I'd rather just spend the 5 minutes.
Interesting.
Whereas you and I lean more on the side of like, let's go and we'll figure things out as we go. We'll make mistakes kind of thing.
I guess it also sort of depends on the definition of like all. Like what is all? There's a scale to that. Like there ain't no way you're getting into section 3, subsection 2, subsection 5. You know, if it's like one of those thickum.
It depends on the complexity of the game. Obviously, like the more complex, the more lenient the folks that want to go in that direction will be. They have their threshold too. I don't think anybody's on the sliding scale extreme of like, I need the whole thing. And if that's the case, like if they are really like that, then they should probably prep for the game ahead of time.
You should have just read the book themselves.
I think everyone has a threshold where they're like, I don't need to know that detail.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's just people are going to have a threreshold that's higher than you and me.
Yeah, I probably veer on the other extreme in general, I'll admit.
Yeah, I'm with you there, but I'm empathizing and being like, I don't think that's our way is better. I think there's a preference there. You want to jump to chapter 4, the systems?
Yeah, chapter 4.
The system is down. The system is down.
Games as systems. I'm not sure if I can summarize this one very well.
This one's about the math. This is like...
That's true, yeah.
It's like breaking down the pieces and then why they make sense and why they exist. And then some of the math that goes with them.
Yeah, literally one point they're talking about actual vectors for determining who has what percentage chance to win. And then drawing them out as lines on a graph.
Yeah. There's like graphs in this chapter. Notable parts. There's a section about sub games and how like games are built upon other games. Also, some games can have small mini games inside of them. They talk all about snowballing and why it can be unfun. They talk about complexity. And then there's a big part about the decision tree. And they go really heavy into the metaphor with the decision tree.
You're talking about bushes.
Yeah. Like there's a tree, it's got branches. It's a bush if it has a bunch of little decisions.
I did actually find the part about catch-up mechanics and catching up in general to be really fascinating because they brought up a lot of like really interesting points in general. And I've experienced, I think, a lot of things they describe in the section in different games. If you have a game that is surprisingly easy to catch up to other players, even if it's late in the game, and you never really feel like you're completely like eliminated from the situation or you're in a bad spot, you're going to feel that the entire early game is largely random, that it didn't really matter what you were doing for the last 30 minutes. All it's going to matter is kind of who's in what position in the last like 3 or 4 turns.
Yeah, there's like this fine line between catch up and like snowballing. They're at two opposite ends that are pretty close together.
Like it can't be so out of control like Food Chain Magnate where like a player is just functionally completely eliminated. They can't do anything to get themselves back into the game, but they still have to keep playing the game with you. It's not as simple as like just giving them a bunch of levers to fuck over the player in first, because there's all sorts of like crazy side effects that you really have to consider in terms of like how the mental impact of your game is going to come across, I think.
Yeah.
As far as like when and how much people should care about their position and furthering their current position.
If the catch-up mechanisms are too strong, then the game feels meaningless or almost like deterministic, like you don't have agency. If the snowballing is too strong or the catch-up mechanisms are too weak, then you feel like you're logically eliminated and then you're forced to continue playing the game even though it's like, what are we doing?
I like that they talked about Mario Kart a lot, and I don't remember if they specifically called it out for doing this, but like there is almost like a strategy in Mario Kart to being more in second or third place just to dodge blue shells.
Yeah.
And then overtaking like right at the end, you know?
Well, like Survivor is like that too. You don't want to be the person doing the best in the game. You want to be the person doing the middle list in the game, or at least from a perception perspective.
Right, exactly. Like a lot of like games that have political elements in particular, Survivor's a great example. It's like you don't want to pull out in the lead and maintain a strong lead constantly because everyone's going to dog you.
I thought the Sid Meier quote was really good. Sid Meier defines a game as a series of interesting choices. I don't know that that's the definition I would give games, but I do think it's kind of cute. I think my favorite games fit that description. I think like drafting Magic the Gathering is like a series of some of the most interesting choices, you know, and back when we were playing like Netrunner at its peak, I felt that way quite often. Twilight Struggle is like another one that I think has a lot of that kind of game feel. And they talk about this concept too, which is like every decision node has like 1 billion or some number of branches that come out of it. And every branch then leads to more branch. And it's like the branchier that the game gets, the bushier it is or whatever. I think it's literally what they say. The more it can veer into overwhelming, but it all kind of depends on like the arc of like how you got there as a player and how easy it is to sort of determine the useless branches, even if you're a relatively inexperienced player. Yeah, they drew these lines that were like bushiness over time, which I didn't think I would ever see that in a textbook ever, but and they were like pretty good at illustrating the points. Like they had a regular chess player versus like a person playing chess for their first few games, and the arc is like there's a bunch of bushiness from the start, and it doesn't really go down that much until the very end when you're like, I'm screwed. I've lost. They also had they had the bushiness chart for Go for a new player, which is just a straight line of just there's a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know what's going on. It's just a straight line throughout the entire game, which I thought was pretty funny with a question mark at the end. They also had some really interesting ones. They talked about Warhammer and minis games, and the bushiness is actually, it's just a straight up downward trend. It starts at its highest complexity and just goes down because as you lose more and more units, there's fewer and fewer decisions to be made.
Yeah.
And that was like, I never thought of it that way.
I tend to like games that do that.
I tend to like the most default, which is like a literal arc. It's like few decisions at the beginning, but then you get going and there's a ton of decisions in the mid game. And then as you're approaching the end, either because you're in a bad position and there's only a few things to get you out of it, or you're in a good position and you know your win condition, then the decision space starts to reduce again and you just hone in on that. I think that's the preferred arc in games, but I'm not opposed to other ones. In the decision tree conversation, they talk a lot about balance, and they define balance as like the way of making sure that the branches that you have are actually viable. They don't have to necessarily all be equal, but they need to actually exist as opportunities. When a game is unbalanced, even if you might have a ton of different decisions, you end up only seeing some of them as viable because the others are shit, and you're just kind of like, well, clearly this is the best strategy or the best decision to take in this particular case, so I'm just going to ignore all these other ones. And that's worse than just having a very limited game, because then you're like, you were sold a false promise, basically.
Yeah, it's funny that they wrote this before Overwatch existed, because they almost like literally predicted, I think, what happened in Overwatch at one point, which is that like you already had an S tier roster of playable characters to choose from. But I think everyone could find a niche in any of the given characters, if I wasn't mistaken. But then they would add characters, and like the new character would come out, and they were just clearly so much of a better choice. Like the grandma with the healing bullets. Wasn't she like crazy broken when she debuted? I
think there's a cadence with Overwatch where they made the characters crazy broken to incentivize people playing them, and then they balanced them over time.
That's the point they were kind of making, is that like the decision tree is like, which character am I going to play? And if there was a meta that knew that like one player is just busted good, you should always pick it, then it's like, it's not really a decision anymore.
There was a specific meta in Overwatch called GOATs that was just like really unpleasant and was clearly the best way to go for competitive play, to the point where it was present both in more casual, just people playing at home, as well as like the tournaments. And yeah, supposedly you got all these cool strategies and hero compositions and things, but there's really only one way to play. You want to go to chapter 5?
Yeah, what's chapter 5 about?
Chapter 5 is about rolling the dice.
Rolling the dice.
It's about randomization, uncertainty, how it plays into games, why it's important, what happens when it's too much or too little.
The concept of randomness is not the same thing as, I think it was luck, maybe?
Yeah, well, it was that random elements are not the same as randomness. I think we tend to think when we say randomness of like rolling the dice, but also random can be like rock, paper, scissors, which is called a von Neumann simultaneous choice. So rock, paper, scissors, there's not actually anything random going on because you have full agency over what decision you make, but you make the decision at the same time as the other person. You have no way of knowing what they're going to do. That in and of itself is random, even though there's no random element. And then there's also like the human element. You never know what somebody's thinking. Maybe Magnus Carlsen is just memeing today. And even though any other day Magnus would make a certain move, you are now seeing Magnus not do that move. Maybe because they know you too well, or because they're, feeling a little cute. And all of a sudden you're boned because you don't know how to react to that. You wouldn't think of chess as a random game, but the random element is your opponent.
Yeah. That was one of the things they brought up is it can be random whether someone is like on their A game or not.
So they talked about why randomness is good. Leveling the playing field is the obvious one, but another one they had was called Ego Crutch, which that's a really good name for a song. I'm going to write that one down, but Ego Crutch is it's like the Tom classic. When he wins at Mataina, it's pure skill, but when he loses at Mataina, it's random.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a way to make people feel good and have copium when they're pretty competitive, but they also don't win the game. So it's seen as a general positive. One of the things that you can benefit from with adding randomness to your game.
Yeah, I like calling this phenomenon an ego crutch. I think it's Richard Garfield in particular, where I first heard this concept in general, where it's if the game has luck elements, good players can recognize that it was them. It was when they played well, and then bad players can just be you just lucked out, outdrew me, luck sacked me. It's kind of the most quintessential thing of all time in terms of gaming. I feel like it's just good to have this in your game generally, or at least it's going to lead to a lot of people playing it, I think.
As long as it just doesn't straight up become arbitrary. I think it's good to have a nice, healthy amount of this. They talked about skill in relation to luck. Well, first of all, they say skill is agential, which I thought was an interesting concept of if you live in a hypothetical scenario where nobody knows how to do tic-tac-toe good, then you're seen as a god. But if you live in a weird society where you grew up amongst a village of grandmasters in chess, you probably feel your skill's pretty low, even if you might be better than the average person. I never thought about skill that way. I thought about it a little bit more absolute, or even just self-referential, you getting more skillful over time. But it's interesting to think that your skill is perceived across society.
And whenever I lose at chess, I tell myself no, society will destroy me.
They're just telling me that I need to surround myself with chumps.
That's how you get good at poker, I think.
Then they do a weird formula that I'm not convinced of. They do applicable skill equals skill minus luck. I think they're just they're trying to say that your actual skill is whatever people perceive minus however much luck there is.
Do you think it's minus the luck factor of the game itself?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
The luck. Oh, okay.
It's not your luck. It's the luck factors in the game. It kind of feels like when you and I are trying to put things in boxes.
Yeah.
This is like a crunchy is the barrier between soft and hard kind of statement.
Yeah. What serial do you think you'd assign to this chapter?
They said there's 3 types of hidden info: private info, puzzle-like info, and random. So private is what you think of with hidden info. You know, what cards are they holding in their hand? Puzzle-like is like, what beats this? What is that monster weak to? And sometimes it's something you have to discover by trial and error, or sometimes it's just like knowledge that you haven't acquired yet because it hasn't been revealed or figured out. And then random is literally, if I delve into this deck right now, there might be something on the top that's good for me or something that's bad for me. And that's another piece of hidden information that they argue is an acceptable form of randomness, that people are generally cool with that. I don't know if I'm... that people might have cooled on that since this was published.
What so far is like the biggest takeaway from characteristics of games? Like what do you feel like you've learned the most?
In the chapters of today, I think that the decision tree aspects has allowed me to verbalize some things, especially like the decision tree in relation to the arc of a game has been kind of enlightening to me. Overall in the book, like the thing that really stood out to me the most maybe is just a lot of the terminology around the types of games, things like systemic and agential, or like the atom, measuring things in terms of the atoms. These terms are really allowing me to vocalize things that I probably would have used more words for in the past and maybe not fully understood. So that's what I'm getting from the book so far. What about you?
I think it's definitely like, just helping me understand game concepts at a level that feels more informed. It's hard to really like quantify with words, like how to specify how exactly it's helping me out. I mean, I probably sound really smart right now at this segment where I'm talking about it.
Yeah, all that experience,
all the reading has really elevated my approach. I think it's like illuminating, right? Like it just makes me more appreciative, more aware of some of these concepts that I'm finding myself running into all the time. Like now I can see the game arc, the branching, right? And then the unbranching, like stuff as it goes out and then back in.
Yeah, I agree. You want to lead us out?
Yeah, you know what? I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much, everybody who came here and listened to this episode. Thank you especially to those of you who read along. The other people that I want to thank on this episode, besides our patrons, are Michael, Tyler, Devin, and Josh, the Boise Rainbows, for your cool segue music. And I want to say thank you to Bonehouse as well for letting us use your song Rot as our opening theme.
If you're loving the cast, share with a friend or on Reddit or BGG. You can also reach out directly at shelfstablecast@gmail.com. All of this and more available in the show notes. And if you like what we're doing and want to make more of it happen, consider subscribing to us on Patreon. You'll get access to bonus content and Discord. Tom, what are you feeling?
Next week, Kenny, I think it's time we do this contest that we have brewing. A Monopoly killer contest. We figure out who's going to kill Monopoly once and for all. 8 games enter the ring. Only one survives. Let's go. We'll see you next week and figure out what that is.
Bye.